You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
What are you smiling at?
You gave me a look.
Because
You gave me a dad look.
Knuckled your knuckles there.
That was the look you give to the children when it's for them to stop what they're doing. And you gave that to me.
Well,
we're going to have a conversation.
Gotta stop what you were doing.
It was funny. Now I know why they laugh at you.
Why they laugh?
When you're like, They just kind of give it back. No.
You're a dork.
I know.
Are you ready?
Yes. I think you should let the listeners know that you've already had more beer than me because it looks like I'm out drinking you. And I don't want it to look like
I have. I've been doing yard work today, so I've had a couple while I was out there doing yard work, but
you didn't really need to disclose it.
that doesn't really count when I drink and do yard work.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Doesn't really count?
Doesn't count at all.
What else doesn't count when you drink and do? Just curious.
When you do yard work?
Yeah, what else doesn't count when you drink and do something? Because it doesn't count when you drink and do yard work. So
correct.
What else doesn't count when you drink and do?
I feel like this is a trick.
It's totally a trick.
Is this a trick question?
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
What else do you think is okay to do?
I don't know. Tell me. What else?
Oh, I'm not saying it is. I want to know your mindset. I want to know what you think is okay.
Slur your words. Be silly.
Are you just playing it safe?
You know what we did?
It's not a trap.
Hold on. Stop. Podcast stop. This is something that we were supposed to have a meeting this morning about. So yesterday, I was high on life and enjoying incredible edible.
The incredible edible egg?
Yes. And Stephanie likes to...
What?
Interpret actions when I am high.
Are you going to start a fight at the beginning of the podcast?
I'm not starting a fight. Don't
be.
you remember we were supposed to have a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning?
No.
And we missed it?
Is it because I also had an edible egg?
No, because this was before yours hit.
Eggle?
Anyways, when I am under the influence of something, it's not a pass to just do whatever I want to do. That's not at all what it is. But it's definitely like things that will never happen. Like I'm never sitting there thinking that you're driving me nuts or that you're annoying me or that you're frustrating or I don't like you or that secretly I'm not in love with. Like all of these things.
You don't get annoyed with me.
I get very annoyed with you.
I thought you just said that. I was like, that's false.
But it's just that silly annoyed high thing that happens. Anyways.
You already contradicted yourself. Continue.
We can start the podcast again.
No.
Podcast
Tell me. What were you trying to say?
You get so caught up in like I was staring at you. Do you remember this point? And you were like, why are you looking at me like that? And you started to interpret the way that I was staring at you as that somehow I was mad at you or that I secretly hate you or something. And the reality is, what's that?
That's not what happened.
Well, that's exactly what happened. And the reality was I was staring just off into the distance because I was actively listening to something else at the same time. And I explained all of this to you at the time where oftentimes when I'm under a certain level of influence, I can only really like actively engage one sense effectively. So at that moment, my hearing was very active and very focused and very dialed in, which meant my sight, right? My seeing, my sense of sight was just blank stares because it wasn't doing anything. And you interpreted that as me being upset with you in some way, shape, or form.
Because I said, why are you looking at me like that?
Yeah.
Do you want to know what actually happened?
Sure.
I didn't want to stress you out or upset you while you were boom, and I was kind of embarrassed and didn't want to admit it. I was very sensitive, and you had a look on your face. You were listening, but you did have I knew you weren't giving me, but I got lost in your eyes for a second, and not in like a beautiful way, but I got fucking scared. I got triggered, and it was why are you looking at me like that? And then I was like, oh, and then I was all right. Huh? And then I just went with it because I didn't want to be like that. I got, but not by you. It was a past thing.
You got triggered?
I got triggered and went into another memory that you were not a part of.
You've been getting triggered a lot lately.
I've been getting triggered a lot lately.
We've been talking about that.
Been having a hard time. So I just got slingshotted into a PTSD moment and said, why are you looking at me like that? And then because I came out of it and then I didn't want to talk about it.
How awesome is it going to be when we finally, and you didn't want to talk about it, so you were distracting with silliness. Okay.
That time.
That time. There are other
There are
times,
other
though.
times where what you said is fact.
Yeah.
But that time.
But not
that
last
time.
night.
No, last night I got scared. Not by you.
So, good. I'm glad we cleared that up. Can we just go forward from this point on? And if I'm behaving in a odd way, don't interpret it as anything other than, oh, that guy's high. He gets a pass.
Okay. Well, thank you for legalized, because now we get to have this conversation. And
Legalized?
yeah.
What are you talking about?
Because legalized.
It's legal
but
in this state.
That's what I said. Thank you, legalized. Don't make me lose my train of thought.
Okay.
Oh, yes. We understand. Craig gets all the passes under that circumstance, and I get none of them because I'm sensitive about it. And
You have equal pass rights.
no, because you're like, I have to give you, but you don't give me the passes.
I give you all the passes.
You just said, no, I have to give you the passes.
There's not one set of passes that we just
Yes,
have to
I
switch
give you
back
the
and
pass,
forth.
which means I can't be sensitive and you can't give me passes.
No.
Because you get the passes. See what I did there?
No. Other than
It
confuse
makes
me.
sense. Okay.
Don't do a...
Here's the passes.
No, don't do
that
a...
I'm supposed to give to you.
Okay.
And I'm over here, rah, rah, rah. And this pass should come to me, but it can't because
you're giving it to
you
me.
get all the passes and I have no passes.
You know what's really neat? You have passes that you can hand out, and I have passes that I can hand out.
Really?
Yes.
Where are they?
They're in my pocket.
Can I have
That's
some?
where I have mine. Where do you keep your passes?
In the glitter air.
In the glitter air. You're cute.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I have something.
Do you? Is it
Recently,
pass?
no. This is actually something that I've been saving. I haven't talked to you about this at all.
I knew you were hiding something.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Recently, I was on a flight. I've been flying around lately, doing some flying things. No, I travel for work sometimes, and I was on a flight. And on this flight, I was watching a movie. And guess what movie I watched?
Flight of the Navigator.
That's a good guess.
Yeah? Was that
Yeah,
it?
No.
Okay.
No, I watched Mr. Holland's Opus.
Oh, wow. That's a blast from the past.
Right?
That's a good show.
Right? Haven't seen it in a really long
Haven't seen
time
that
myself,
really-
and
yeah.
I was very excited to watch it again. You remember it,
I do remember.
right?
I
It
think
comes
I
back
remember
to
it now.
memory, right?
Yeah.
You can remember the show. Richard Dreyfuss plays Mr. Holland, and he's a musician. I'm just going to spoil alert everything. So if you haven't watched it, then I guess you can't listen to this episode of the podcast. But he's a musician that ends up taking a teacher's job,
Yes.
or like a job as a teacher.
With an
Yeah,
app.
go ahead, bud. Go ahead and interrupt. Come on in.
We
I
took,
have been to the podcast for a sec.
Okay.
it's actually recording.
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, can I use your binoculars?
Yes.
Or can I use a specific kind?
Nope. Either one's fine.
Alright, I love you.
I love you.
Love you.
You know where they're at?
It's recording.
I know.
Okay.
How you doing?
Okay. Thank you. Good job.
I'm in the hormone.
Happy birthday, Ashley.
Love
Just turned
you.
15.
Hey, do you want to be on it?
No, be
You
careful.
can.
No, I'll be fine. You
Okay.
Can get that in.
Okay.
I love you.
Have fun. Be
We
careful.
can't edit the video, so yeah.
Shh, stop talking to him so he'll leave. Okay.
I love you.
Have fun. Squirrels.
Thank you.
Anyways, Mr. Holland's Opus, he's a teacher. He's a band teacher. He's a music teacher. And it just follows his journey in life, right? It goes from the beginning when he begrudgingly takes the job to eventually his / being pushed out of the school because they cut funding / retirement. So it's like this 40-year career or 30-year career, something like that, of teaching and all the different people that he impacted. And there's some really beautiful moments in it, right? He's got a deaf son. That's like a big plot twist in the show, as they have a baby and the baby ends up deaf, and he's an asshole to his son because he's deaf and he doesn't know how to connect with them. And he ends up learning how to connect with his deaf son, and it's just this whole thing. So it's a good movie. I used to think.
Oh.
I remember when it came out, and I remember liking it a lot. It came out very closely around the same time as Forrest Gump.
Okay.
And so Forrest Gump kind of overshadowed it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of Forrest Gumpy in the sense that it went through several decades throughout the show.
Okay.
So it starts in the 60s and 70s and 80s and all the way into the 90s, kind of like how Gump did with the progression of that show as well. Anyways, so we're going to have a conversation about Mr. Holland's Opus.
It's been decades since I've watched it. So it's going to be
So you have no idea.
No, I don't have no idea, but I have little idea. Like I remember when they realized he was deaf. I remember that moment and the end when it's like this moment where it comes through and the signing.
So I'm going to bring up something from this show.
Okay, see if I remember it. I might not.
You'll remember this part.
I might not.
You will.
Okay.
But you won't remember it the way that it really was in the show.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff that obviously things almost happen in a time capsule, right? Where things that were acceptable back in the throughout history, it doesn't matter when, right? Whatever period of time it was, there's a lot of societal norms, things that were acceptable, things that were kind of commonplace that over time change and they're no longer norms that are accepted, right? Suddenly they become things that we realize how foolish we were to think that that was ever a thing that was
foolish, good term.
A norm
Yeah.
or something that should be accepted.
We learn better, we do better.
Exactly. And there's a big sliding scale to that, right? Some of it is, I mean, obviously racism's a wonderful example where it was a common practice throughout history and throughout time, but obviously it's something that should have never existed, should have never been all the different ways and things like that. That's not what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
I don't want to, I'm trying to build it up because it's
actually making me tired.
This was a really big deal to me when I realized it in the show. I'm watching this show on a plane and I'm so excited to be watching it because I haven't seen it in a really long time and I remember liking it.
Okay.
And it's going along and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this part and I remember that part. And like one of his first students, the very first year that he teaches, she sucks at the clarinet and he ends up helping her and she gets a little bit better and he makes a big impact on her. And then at the end of the show, throughout the entire show, Mr. Holland's Opus is this musical piece that he's been writing his whole life that he never gets the opportunity to complete and finish, right? His big orchestra, his big piece. And then at the end of the show, they perform it. And
did you get choked up?
Parts of it.
No, right there.
No.
You're like,
not in this moment. No. But some of the students come back that he's taught over the years. And so that student, one of the very first students, turns out to be the governor of the state that they're in. And she comes back and plays the clarinet. So there's spots like that throughout the movie where it's just really touching. And then there's a spot in the middle of the movie where he's probably, I don't know, we'll say halfway through his career. And he is obviously a music teacher, a band teacher, but he's involved in the marching band. I mean, just like every other high school, right? He does everything. He does orchestra, marching band, helps with the school plays. I mean, everything that there's a musical component. Choir. He does everything. And
is it the musical plays or the regular plays?
So there's a plot or
is that a pass?
Not a plot twist. I'm trying to get past what you're saying.
Okay. There's a plot twist.
Because you keep interrupting me with nonsense.
I know. I just tried to make it.
There's a subplot in the show where there's a time period in his life when he's been teaching for 10 or 15 years and he is co-directing the school play with some other teacher. So he's obviously the musical director of the play and they're having auditions. And it's sad, right? Nobody can sing. They have the football players there as the dancers. It's this whole thing. And then finally, this girl comes in and sings. And she's a knockout. And she's amazing. And she sings wonderfully. And she's got a beautiful voice. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, right?
Okay.
We found our star for our show.
Okay.
So that's the subplot.
Okay.
So then as time progresses, he cultivates a relationship with this girl. Keep in mind, he's a high school teacher.
Is this going to go like...
Keep in mind, he's a high school teacher.
Okay. All right.
High school band teacher. This girl is presumably in high school, right? Obviously.
Was that...
She's a senior in high school.
Christ, presumably.
Okay. So she's in high school. Mm-hmm. And she has tried out for the play and she's got the lead. Mm-hmm. And he does after school like practices with her so that she gets more time to practice and sings different songs. And I mean, it's not uncommon. He goes out of his way to help all of his students, right? Stays after, shows up early. He's done this his whole career. And he starts to
Must have
cultivate
been really too long. I don't
this
remember any of this.
relationship
Okay.
with this student. And it's very clear, by the way, that they're portraying everything, that she very much kind of has a little crush on him, right? And there's one point where they have a scene where they have stayed after late. I mean, it's not like midnight or something, but it's, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They've stayed after school and they're in the band room by themselves, and she's singing and he's playing the piano and everything like that. And she's talking to him about her problems and about her life. And she wants to be a singer, but mom and dad want her to stay in the small town and work at the family restaurant or whatever the fucking plot, it's all stereotypical shit. And he encourages her to chase her dreams and, do whatever you want to do and go be that singer in New York that you want to be. And you can just see in the way that they're shooting everything that she's very much infatuated with him. It's Richard Dreyfuss, by the way, right? I mean, not that, but it's it's hard for me to see Richard Dreyfuss in anything and not see him in Jaws and or Close Encounters. But anyways, so there's a moment where they're kind of like sitting on the piano bench together, talking and close, and then somebody comes into the room, and then it's that awkwardness, and then she leaves. And later on, there's another scene where he's up late and he's writing some piece of music that he has titled Rowena, because the character's name is Rowena. So the piece is called Rowena's whatever fucking song. And his wife comes in and asks him, who's Rowena? And he makes up some lie about it being some character in some book that he's reading or something like that, some old character. And then there's some point, I don't remember, the play goes on, and there's a point where she comes up and tells him, I'm leaving, I'm taking your advice, I'm going to New York. Closing night of the play, they have a big cast party. After the cast party, I'm getting on the bus at midnight on the edge of town, and I'm taking off, and you should come with me, right? And he's like, well, I can't do that. I'm a teacher, and I'm married, and I have a young son, and you can see all of this running through his head. And she's like, I'll be there at, midnight. And if you want to come, then meet me there. And they have some sort of like, there's a scene where his wife finds out or learns the name of the lead actress, learns that her name is Rowena, and then puts two and two together, and then sees him looking at her as she's like performing and singing. So his wife sees what's going on. Play ends. The next scene is her sitting on the bus bench by herself late at night, waiting for the bus to arrive. And prior to that, he had told his wife that he was going to the cast party and that he might be home late, so don't stay up. And then he goes to the bus bench and meets her there. And he goes and sits down by her, and they have this moment and this conversation, and he's basically like, good luck. I wish you the best. Obviously, I can't go with you. And then the bus shows up, and then she stands up to leave, and they hug, and then they kiss. And then she gets on the bus and leaves. So the way that it's portrayed in the movie is just this really like touching romantic moment. And then also there's the flip side where his wife is aware of what's going on. He comes home afterwards, gets into bed or something like that, and tells her how much he loves her. And then like the acknowledgement, like the undertone, as well as like it very much is outwardly, it was like, thank you, husband, for making the right decision and putting your family first and choosing to, pick us, basically. So that's the whole like subplot in the middle of this fucking movie.
Shitty.
Okay?
I didn't remember any of that.
I didn't remember any of that either.
As you're saying it, I'm getting parts of it.
I remember remember the actress. I remember the play. I remember like all these little things. I remember that the football players were the dancers, but I don't remember that little part of it. And I'm watching it now in my, 40 years of life that I've had. And I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, well, what they just got done portraying is, like what teachers get arrested for today, right? Rightfully so. It was just such a, like, there's a part of me that was fascinated by the fact that it was portrayed in such a
acceptable,
not just acceptable, but romanticized way, where that relationship between the student and the teacher and how acceptable, like how normalized it was in the concept of, even though it was like, like that, the aspect of it wasn't like, hey, you're a fucking pedophile, you're misusing your, like all the things that are wrong with the fact that you're trying to engage in any sort of relationship with your fucking student, on top of the age discrepancy, on top of all of these other things, right? None of that. It's just like, oh, you shouldn't cheat on your wife. Like you should probably do the right thing and pick your family over running away to New York with the 18-year-old or the 17-year-old or however fucking old she is, right? And then how noble he is. And his wife just like accepts that, congratulations, honey, you made the right decision. And now we can move on with our relationship and with our life and this beautiful life that we can create and live.
Yeah, it's a different time.
Well, it's not just a different time.
That's all I can say.
Isn't that crazy?
This way. It's upsetting.
I couldn't believe
upsetting. It. Yeah.
And it was halfway through the movie and I'm like, fuck this movie. I don't want to finish this fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like it pissed me off.
Yeah.
I finished it because I wanted to see if there was anything else that stood out. But I was like, how is that? I get it from the perspective of like how I said earlier, where things are, different.
Dazed and confused how to, I mean, they didn't like romanticize it, but they still let it be on the show as such a normal thing.
Right. Yeah.
There was something else too recently. I don't remember what it was that had the same thing.
But there's this thing like, and I think it is still very much a thing. It's just not portrayed like that in media, but I think there is still very much that thing where like there's a romanticized aspect of like that student teacher relationship. Like think about it from the perspective of maybe not necessarily high school, but like college.
They still have college professors and students all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like a thing where
they just make it now so it's not a felony. So they do it just a little bit older. So it's not like, haha, it's not as bad because it's not a child technically anymore. So now we can put it back in the media.
But all of it, it's just like, it's so, I mean, I understand it from the perspective of that's how things used to operate and how things used to be and how things were portrayed in movies and film and all that kind of stuff. I get that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But there's a part of me that just like, I can't, like if we were to go back to that time period, right? Mm-hmm. Like the early 80s, because that's when this part took place in, right? You and I were obviously alive, even though this is a fictional place in Mr. Holland's Opus. But we go back to that time period and like parents aren't doing anything. Do you know what I mean? Like there's nobody that like his wife isn't like, hey, fucker. It's not a matter of like you're having an affair with some other woman. It's a fucking student. Do you know what I mean? It's a goddamn teenager.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I'm just like, I couldn't understand. It was very, very disturbing to me.
It's very disturbing.
And it was kind of shocking.
You're right. I don't remember it that way. I do now, but.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I couldn't, like
him being such a, like the feeling I got from it, like he was a struggling man, but that deep down heart of gold. And then you get to see it. Like he was just such a.
Right.
Nice guy.
Such a good guy, right?
Yeah. That's how they fucking get you, ladies.
And he was,
guys.
I mean,
just kidding. I don't know why I said that.
Well, that's the way that it's portrayed, right?
Yeah.
Where he's kind of begrudgingly this teacher that takes it upon himself to do this thing and become a teacher, and then eventually finds himself in this career that he's raising his family on and everything like that. And it's ups and downs and all these kind of different things, but that idea that he's going to cultivate that relationship in the way that they portrayed it, in the way that it, do you know what I mean? It was very clear that she was infatuated with him. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that part. There's nothing wrong with a teenage girl being infatuated with her teacher, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I think that if we look at it outside of the movie and just from like reality, I think that that probably happens all the time. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but I think there's also an aspect of like, because it is romanticized in film and TV, then it becomes this thing, and older men, and like the older men thing is a real thing, right? Mm-hmm. That's a thing. And so there's nothing wrong with that part of it. But then the part where he plays into it, the part where he then fantasizes about it, in a sense, right? Where he goes there in his head. Mm-hmm. They never portray any of that on film, with the exception of like him writing this fucking song for her. But it was very clear that he was very much entertaining the idea. And then, like, I was okay kind of up until the point where he was just entertaining the idea, because I can look at it from the perspective of film, and like, I mean, you know, movies portray everything, right? And it's like, why shy away from a topic? And this is a topic too that they don't need to shy away from in film. But then that point came where where they fucking kissed, and I'm just like, how is this not like what the movie's about? And then everything shifts and changes after that, and you know, Mr. Holland is then not just fired but prosecuted, and yeah, it was very, very strange.
It is very strange.
So that's my that's what I've been holding on to talk about on the podcast. I was expecting
a much better story. Like, wait, let me rephrase it. I don't mean like a movie. I thought it was going to be like something funny that happened to you on the plane.
Yes.
Like sometimes you come home with adventure stories, and that's what I was thinking. And now I'm just like, oh, that movie's ruined. And
it's very much ruined.
It's just kind of a like, that's messed up.
Isn't it messed up?
Messed up. Yeah. I don't know what to talk about now.
I know. I don't
All
either.
I can think of is like, it's just like obviously making me think of Kevin Spacey. So
what about Kevin Spacey?
American Beauty.
What about him? It's a great film. Best Picture. I'm teasing.
Okay. I don't think I can fix my face yet.
You can joke.
I don't think so. That's not a funny topic.
It's American Beauty is a very old movie.
Yeah.
We can joke about American Beauty.
Worse than
the only reason
Mr. Holland's Opus.
The only reason that it's worse now.
No, if you go back to look at the cover of the movie. It's a teenager covered with rose petals, barely. Like the cover is child porn. Like it's terrible from the get-go.
Yes.
So,
and
it was portrayed. He didn't have to act, because turns out he's a terrible person. So
yes.
So it's way worse than Mr. Holland's Opus.
It is way worse than Mr. Holland's Opus. From like that dynamic. Like, what do you think it is about? This is actually a good topic, right?
Reason men are trying to make like women are portrayed with bald and smooth and young as possible. It's that there's something. It's what's that? I don't remember that phrase. I was trying to use it before on another podcast, and I don't remember what it was called.
On
trying
last
to make
week's
them
episode.
Look as I don't think it was. It might have been.
Yeah.
As young as absolutely possible. So.
What do you think? Because let's think about it this way, right? In film, TV shows, everything like that. Do you think it's okay to portray everything that happens in real life? Because these things happen in real life, right? Do you think it's okay to portray everything, or do you think there are some things that we should not portray because it then perpetuates, like the way. Like the romanticizing, do you know what I mean? Like it almost becomes normalized in some way, shape, or form, and especially over time and throughout history, and all these things that we've portrayed in films and TV shows that aren't acceptable, even though they're a part of reality. How much of it is like how much of it is life reflecting what is portrayed versus what is portrayed reflecting life?
He asked me 2 questions. Which one do you want me to answer?
Both. You pick which one you want to choose first. Okay.
My first answer, without giving it time, is it is okay to portray everything, but it needs to be portrayed accurately without the softening or the romanticism of pain-inducing behavior. So yes, put it out there so we can see what it really is, but don't sugarcoat it. Don't give, the the person who's causing so much pain from any aspect you put out there, a victim mentality and then a hero mentality, like show it what it is, show the degradation of it, but it should be shown so people aren't like, oh, that's not really, I don't know. So yeah, I think it should be shown. And then what did you say? Portraying life or life portraying, what was the other word?
Well, it's like vice versa, right?
Yeah, I understand. But what was the other word? I'm just asking for the word, not your definition again.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Reflecting? Mirroring?
No, that's not the word.
Portraying?
That's not the place the word goes.
A reflection of the way life used to be.
You said this.
Reflection of.
Jesus, okay. I don't know. You don't even remember what you said. You said, is it this portraying life or life portraying this? And where I'm using the word this is where the word that I don't remember goes.
So because
not a definition, just a word.
Well, I'm trying to re-explain that concept.
I don't need that. I just need the word. For the love of God.
I don't remember the exact word.
Let's just move on. Then don't re-explain the concept, please.
But this is a really good topic.
It is. I'm not saying move on. I'm saying please don't re-explain that.
Okay.
Thank you.
There are so many things that jumped to mind as you were talking.
Not you paying attention to what I was saying. That's why I couldn't remember the word.
No, I was very much paying attention to what you were saying. I think there are some things that we probably shouldn't portray on film.
Okay. Okay. I can think of something actually. So yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And yet I can think of almost everything. I can't think of something that hasn't been portrayed on film.
I can't either.
Do you know what I mean? I think in some way, shape, or form, everything in one way has been portrayed on film. And I think what happens, I mean, it's the same thing like with violence. That was a big argument back when we were teenagers back in the 90s with video games and with movies and everything like that, where it was like all the violence was going to desensitize us. And
do you think it was right?
Well, I don't know. We're a product of it. Do you feel like you're desensitized to violence? I mean, I used to play violent video games and all sorts of stuff. I didn't turn out to be a fucking violent serial killer. You know?
That we know of.
Correct. Stay tuned for season 2.
Actually, yeah. I got desensitized by a lot of things. And things were seemingly normal. I'm more sensitive to things now because I can see it differently now. But absolutely, I was desensitized.
Do you think that that has anything to do with... Because I agree. I think that I was desensitized like to violence and to sex and to a bunch of different things that was portrayed in film. But I think that that may have more to do with just the regular growth of a human. Because you go through periods of your life where things affect you differently.
I don't have a comparison. That might be it.
Think about it this way. I'll give you some simple things.
It might be it, but I don't know.
As a kid, you're very scared by things. You watch a scary movie and you're very scared.
As a kid.
And then when you're a teenager and when you become like a young adult, then you're
fearless.
You build up this level of
nothing scares me.
Exactly. And you're going to watch everything and you're not going to be scared by it all anymore.
Yes.
And then you get into after that time period and things start to scare you again. Right?
That's fact.
So that's a normal progression, I think. So maybe it's the same thing with desensitization.
But we can't experiment that because let's go to the Amish.
The Amish?
Hear me out.
Okay.
They're not watching these shows. They're not even being exposed. They're in a unplugged area. So you have the adolescents, the teenagers, and the adults. Except for was it Ramadan? That's not it. Fuck.
That's not it.
What is it?
Rumspringa.
That's not even close. Jeez, I apologize for that. If you've ever watched podcasts, you know I can't say words right. So, other than that, that might be a culture where they have, because they're not known for their violence either. So that might be a way to actually test that and look at the way of the progression up until Rumspringa, because
that would be so fascinating.
Like you could really see how teenagers.
But think about the things that are portrayed in film and TV that we have an issue with.
Okay.
like violence or pedophilia,
big issue.
murder, some of these things that are like taboo topics that when they are addressed in film and TV, they're done in such a way that romanticizes them sometimes. Also, I mean, I don't think it ever really accurately portrays some of these really hard things that we deal with in society, right?
Yeah.
But it would be really fascinating to see if some of those things exist in Amish cultures, in cultures that haven't been affected by media.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that there is like the fetishization, that's an attempt to say that word,
I think you got it.
of women and having them look like children or young women? I wonder if that exists in cultures that don't have. It can't.
It can't, right?
Yeah, it
I mean,
wouldn't.
I don't know, but I can't see it being a thing.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
it is interesting.
That's
It's a
very
different.
interesting.
I bet somebody has done that study. If you
I
are
bet.
familiar with that TED Talk, send it our way, please.
I'm really, really interested.
I just think that, like, I think there's a balance between film and TV should be able to show us everything. It should be a reflection of what life is really like, but it never truly is. That's the problem.
Maybe
And then when we see things, like, think about, this is a really good example too.
I withdraw my answer.
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to let you know right now, I withdraw my answer. I said, yes, it should portray everything because I'm thinking of getting things out in the open, but maybe not.
Mass
Like,
shootings.
Maybe not.
So,
It's always about the shooter.
well, the way that mass shootings are portrayed in TV and film, because for a while they were very taboo and they
Yeah.
weren't portrayed. And then it's like they went into a different realm, even though we didn't stop having mass shootings in this country. But then they went into this different place where they were more widely shared. And like it used to be, do you remember Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio?
I don't think I ever watched that, so no.
So there's a scene in that where he's totally trench coat out and he goes into the school and shoots some kids up.
Jeez, I would remember
And,
that. I did not see that.
Columbine,
I remember.
they drew parallels and connections between that. And then the two shooters from Columbine also had
The trench coats.
the trench coats that they were mirroring from.
And then there was
Basketball
like a
Diaries
whole stigma on people with trench coats
Correct.
after that.
There was a whole
It big
thing.
Uh-huh.
And so we stopped portraying mass shootings specifically in schools, but in general in film and TV for a very long time. And then they started again. They started portraying them, right? We watched, I'm not going to be able to pull this, but
It was Vox Lux.
Vox Lux.
Look at, see, that was one of those moments.
Good
You
job.
and I.
Steph and I have a neural link. Thank you, Elon. Terrible fucking movie with
Terrible.
Natalie Portman called Vox Lux. I think we did an entire episode
We
of the
did.
podcast back
We
in the day
did.
on it.
You can go find it.
But the beginning of that show starts with a mass shooting at a school. So they stopped not showing that stuff. What is right or what is wrong, right? Is it art and they're portraying what happens in life, or are they sensationalized? Because it's not real. The original thing I was trying to say was when they portray mass shootings in film and TV, it is never accurate. It's there's almost no way to portray it accurately because the realities of those situations are so different than what you see in film and TV. So if it's really going to be an accurate portrayal of what takes place in life when it comes to these taboo topics, I think it needs to be very raw and very, very real. I mean, just that one alone, shootings, violence, mass shootings, when people get shot, it never looks like what it looks like on film and TV. So it gives us a completely different perspective of what really takes place in reality and in life. And so it's like, if we're going to start, if we want to mirror life with our film and with our art, then we should probably have it be way more accurate. When it comes to these things that I think influence society in such a big way, right? You cannot say that just this one topic, mass shootings and violence and things like that, has not affected society in some way, shape, or form, right? Film and TV, that level of violence that takes place on film and TV has affected portions of society. Undoubtedly. I mean, we just talked about Columbine. Of course it did, right?
Yeah.
So what's right? And what should we not be showing?
don't know. My first reaction is like, no, I don't want to see that. Like, I can't handle that. That's too much for me. I wouldn't be able to handle that. I couldn't handle that. Just thinking about that right now, I'm getting kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
And then my reaction makes me think that would bring out empathy. So
If they showed it real?
So show it real, because maybe somebody that is on like the edge can see like the horrific of it and then, you know, change their mind.
Yeah.
And then I realize that there are people that that might push them towards it because their mindset is distorted, and where that is exactly, and then that would be the pushing. So I don't know. So then I circle around back to I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? You know? I mean, who knows?
I don't have an answer.
Obviously, we have an explanation of what it's like with it.
I want to give you another example from film and TV. You brought it up.
Can it be a happy one?
American Beauty.
Okay, that's not a happy one.
Well, if you're not, these are all spoiler alerts, by the way, if you haven't ever seen any of these movies or anything like that. But in this movie, Kevin Spacey plays a middle-aged man who goes through a midlife crisis. He has a teenage daughter, a wife that's cheating on him, a terrible job that he gets fired from, and he's just a miserable fuck.
Teenage daughter has a best friend.
Yes, the teenage daughter has a best friend who...
I wonder why I'm triggered by that one.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably not talk about that. Let's talk about a different movie. The point I was trying to make, sometimes in film and TV, they will portray things that are people's thoughts and or imagination.
Yes.
So there'll be something that takes place on film that is somebody's imagination in the movie, where it doesn't really happen in the movie, and yet we're seeing their dream, their imagination, their thought process.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Those things, like imagine if we were to just suddenly film, like if we could take our thought process and have it thrown up on the screen. Like mine would definitely be R-rated sometimes. And there'd be some times where it would be like, oh, we can't put this on TV or on film ever. Like nobody can ever see this, right?
That's how I feel too.
There's things that run through my mind sometimes, and thoughts that I have, and images that come flashing, and then like full scenarios of something that plays out.
Yeah.
Like right now I can imagine driving my car into a fucking building full of...
No.
What I'm saying is, when that stuff is portrayed on film, should we be portraying those things? I mean, the whole thing is like, at what point do we... I'm not looking at like we need to... I mean, honestly, if I think about this question, what should we show or what we shouldn't show? I think we should be showing everything. I don't think it matters.
I don't know. I want to look at some studies with...
people that aren't...
That are... Am I saying that? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. By saying like Amish people. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Culture.
Well, I want to make
religion.
sure that I am phrasing it in a
The
non-offensive
Amish.
way. The Amish, hopefully. I'm trying to I'm willing to be wrong.
If you're Amish and you're listening to this podcast...
They can't. Well, see, right?
Who knows?
Right. Well, they don't. As far as... only information I have is actually from TV
From
and media.
TV and film.
So I don't
Think about
know.
how they're portrayed there.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's factual or not.
Yeah.
But I would be curious to... in my mind says they didn't have this information. They didn't have this kind of TV shit that's going on, and they don't have this kind of violence. But then you say take that away, and that goes into a control and conformity, because then that's not safe. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Know.
I think for me, it all comes back down to mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Because
why
all
we're
of these
seeing
issues,
therapists.
all of
Let's
these
ask for
issues,
therapists.
I don't think they'll have the answer. But all of these issues come from a place of, these things are things that we don't want to take place in society. We don't want these bad things to happen in society. All these things that we're talking about, we don't want them to happen. These are terrible things that happen to people in reality, in real life. And we don't want those things to happen anymore.
Ever.
And it's that old adage of hurt people, right? People that are damaged and hurt.
Oh, okay.
End up...
Damage and hurting.
Correct.
Okay.
The cycle repeats itself. And so how do we fix that cycle? Mental health. comes back to people need
It
help.
always comes back to mental health.
For me?
Everything. No, not just like, okay, yeah, I guess for you. But I can see the paths that you're creating or showing. It doesn't matter what. It always, always, always comes back to the thing that every single person is affected by and experiences personally. But it's so stigmatized.
It is. Like, let's go back to Mr. Holland's Opus. So let's think about that as a reality as opposed to a shitty movie from the 90s.
Okay.
Or maybe the late or early 2000s. I don't know when it
I
came
think
out.
it was 90s. I might be wrong, but
So let's think about Mr. Holland as a real person. And let's psychoanalyze this real person who entertained the thought of having an illicit affair and running away with a student.
with a teenager.
Right? So what
With them.
what could have potentially taken place in Mr. Holland's life and his head and in his experiences that would have caused him to go down that rabbit hole?
I don't really want to entertain that.
But it's just for the sake of the podcast,
So,
obviously.
I don't know. Either witnessing it from other people in his life, from TV, or experiencing it himself.
Think about
I don't know.
like 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Because that's
Okay.
when Mr. Holland was a child, right? So he was growing up seeing that older man with a younger woman dynamic that was portrayed throughout film and throughout history. Where it is, I mean, think about Hugh Hefner's a wonderful example. He's like the
Okay.
epitome of creepy Mr. Burns,
Is he
old
dead
fucker.
yet?
I don't know if you're dead, Hugh, we apologize. Actually,
we don't.
We don't apologize.
No, we don't.
There's nothing wrong with Hugh Hefner other than, okay, we're getting sidetracked. Anyways, that relationship or that relationshipal dynamic, the older man and the younger woman is one that has been not just romanticized, but that has been I mean, think about how early
on camera.
they used
That
to
just
marry.
happened.
Did you just dribble?
No, I like spilled. I took a drink and I just bleh,
All over?
everywhere. Okay,
Okay.
that's what it is.
Are y'all better?
No, I'm kind of embarrassed because yay, camera. It's all right.
But that thing has been. I mean, they used to marry off young women to older men.
I know
all the time.
they still do.
They still do.
That's not a past thing. That's a current thing.
So that is the environment that Mr. Holland has grown up in.
Mm-hmm.
So is there some part of him that is mentally ill because he entertains that idea and he goes down that rabbit hole? Or is he just a product of his upbringing in the society?
It is well enough known at that time that that's not acceptable.
In the 80s? I don't know if it was.
It wasn't.
Meaning, I don't know if it was well enough known that that wasn't acceptable in the 80s.
I believe it was.
Boy, I don't think anybody was getting prosecuted for that shit. They may have gotten fired.
I can't be this wrong. I cannot be this wrong. I mean, I guess I could be this wrong. I'm this wrong all the fucking time.
Think about the things that were okay in the 80s.
I am thinking about the things that were okay in the 80s, but I'm also thinking about like, there's no way. I don't think my psyche. No, it was not okay. It was hard to prosecute because women were like, it's still hard to prosecute, but women are not believed ever. Women just, it's crazy. I'm getting really upset actually. Wow.
By what?
I was just feeling all that trigger.
I know. I'm so sorry. I knew that this topic was going to trigger you in some way.
No, well, of course it is. But I'm just like, I've been deep work with my therapist and things are really at the surface. I'm kind of handling it harder.
I think you thought we were going to have a light
I
episode.
did actually. I was prepared for jokes and laugh. There's a Marco Polo with Ashley on here where I'm like, we're going to do a fun one. So I was definitely in the mindset of silly, fun, happy. I don't even remember where I was on that. I remember trigger and I don't remember what I was supposed to
Well, it's like the
explain.
whole thing that you said earlier where it all comes back
said?
to mental health.
You said that and I agreed with you.
You said that.
No, you said that and I'm like, you're right, it does. You're a smart man.
That's one thing that we should probably start portraying in a more accurate way in film and TV.
Yes.
Because the way that it is portrayed is terrible.
It's either proclaimed sanity or this is what insanity looks like. There's no middle ground. It's like either you're healthy and you're right on the line because they make that fictional thing a thing, or you are batshit crazy. They don't.
Correct.
That's
It's
what
like,
I think you're saying.
well, it's like the way that they like, I mean, we're watching The Mayor of Easttown with Kate Winslet
Yeah.
on HBO Max. It's a great little mini series.
If you want to sponsor us, you can.
Kate Winslet, hit us up.
Why not?
But in that show, she's a police detective that has just a nightmare of a fucking life, and eventually she ends up in therapy. And initially, she's forced to go. She begrudgingly goes, and she doesn't want to go. But just the way that they portray that interaction with her and her therapist, I mean, I think it's like anything else that gets portrayed in film and TV. It's not accurate.
Yeah.
It's a sensationalized, stylized version of the reality of it, right? Like the fact is, fuck. I'm getting so frustrated because I'm not going to be able to express all of these thoughts that are running through my head and things like that. But they just don't do a very good job of showing what that really is and what that's really like, right? I mean, her going to her therapist is a 2-minute portion of an hour-long episode.
And it's the same therapy session you've seen everywhere.
Correct. It's like the same office. It's the same bench. It's the same chair that the therapist is sitting in. It's like the same short. I mean, the whole thing is like,
even how she goes in with that suit kind of attitude, everything in the therapist's response.
So Stephanie and I have been in therapy for 2 weeks.
We've been in therapy throughout our lives. So we've experienced bad, medium, and good, I feel.
Correct. We've had different periods of time in our life where we've gone to therapy, and now we're currently in therapy again, and it's a very good thing. But it's a fucking shit show. Like, I sit down, I mean, currently I sit down in front of the fucking computer, right? And talk to my therapist. But it's like, I don't like it. It's not like this, I'm going to be brooding and I don't like this experience. But it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. There's times I don't feel like he knows what he's doing. He very well might, right? He might very well know. But I don't think he does. I think he's just there for the ride. And he's an experienced, like, train conductor. So
yeah. Okay. You're a train conductor.
But I just think I think we should be portraying mental health in a far different way in film and TV. And it's getting better. Oh. I can think of some examples where it's getting better, but it's still not good. And the way that people talk about it, the way that it's viewed, the way that like it's portrayed. I mean, think about any fucking news story where they talk about somebody that has some sort of mental illness.
I do sometimes. Oh yeah.
Right.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
It's bad.
We talked about this recently. There was a shooting a few months ago here in Utah where 2 officers were shot by some homeless guy. Yeah. And the way that homeless guy was portrayed in local media here, I mean, was just outright, like villainized. And his criminal record and all these different things were brought out to talk about him in this situation. Now, granted, he shot 2 police officers. But from listening to what was, talked about in the media at the time that this all went down, he was homeless. He had a significant criminal history. The majority of his charges stemmed from drug-related issues or drug charges. And he was in and out of jail on a regular basis. He was on probation, and he was homeless. So there is a level of mental illness that exists in this human over the course of several years that's well documented in the justice system. Nothing is accommodated for or taken into consideration in regards to trying to get that man help in any way, shape, or form that is actually going to benefit him and help him.
That's true.
And the end result is now he's dead, right? The cops shot him and killed him after who knows. It doesn't matter the specifics of the case. But what matters in this context of the conversation is his mental health was not addressed in any way, shape, or form as a cause of this situation. Yeah. And from the way that I see it, it is 100% the cause of this situation. He's not just some piece of shit that decided to kill cops, right? Yeah. There's this, who knows if he was in the middle of some sort of schizophrenic break. Yeah. Right? So there's a potential that these police officers, interacted and engaged with. Now, this is all from my brain, right? I haven't gone back and researched anything since it happened. And so this isn't factual, but there's a potential that he was in the middle of some sort of schizophrenic break. So he's having some sort of like terrible episode. Maybe he is schizophrenic. Who knows? And
I think they said that at some point.
who knows?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. What matters is that he definitely had issues with mental health, and it wasn't discussed in any way, shape, or form as a contributing factor to this case.
No, I don't think
Or-
they did. I think they just said addict. I'm sorry, keep going.
But that's what I'm saying is like, that needs to shift and change, right? It's 100% the reason why he shot those 2 police officers. It's 100% the reason why he died. Right.
If he would have got help instead of criminalized.
Yeah. Then who knows? That situation most likely would not have happened. Now, of course, there's the people that would say, yes, it would happen. And there's always that, of course, I'm not saying there aren't bad people, but I think there's probably like 1% bad people. And then the rest of us are just fucking mentally ill.
Yeah.
Right. And then that bad person that just happens to be a bad person, he's probably mentally ill as well. It just happened to be, in utero that he got mentally fucked up and mentally ill. Or she.
Or
Who
she.
knows?
Or they.
We should not try to have serious conversations when we are.
Anyways, so are we, what should we do then? Should we be done? I feel like we have just like steamrolled the sad show.
The sad show. I think this is a good episode.
I didn't say it wasn't a good episode. I said it was sad.
I think there's some
lots of
very
sad
interesting
stuff.
thoughts.
There is very interesting thoughts. There's
Should we
some
be
sad
changing up what we portray, meaning not showing things in film and movies? Or should we show them in a more realistic way?
thoughts? I don't know.
Because there's also a part that's like art. Film should
There
also
is
be.
a part that's art, and there's shit we see on TV that is not art. It is nothing but like stimulating that dopamine and getting going and drawing money in and chaos.
Think about The Shape of
is
Water.
not-
So this movie, The Shape of Water,
That's where we're going.
it's art
Sure.
because it's fucking fantasy,
It's definitely fantasy.
right? She falls in love with a fish man.
It's definitely weird.
It's very weird,
It's very weird.
but it's very beautifully shot, artistic film,
okay. I'll give you that one.
right?
That is an art film.
That's an art film.
That is absolutely an art film.
So should we stop portraying a woman having sex with a man fish?
I mean, I'm a little disturbed by it.
Should we stop romanticizing that? I don't know.
That's your big.
Just pulling shit out of my ass at this point.
I'm
babe.
sorry. Give me something. To
How
really...
did we go from Mr. Holland's Opus to The Shape of Water?
I can see.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Wow, that was such a thing. Is that still a thing? Does
I think it's
anybody
still a
really say
thing.
that?
I think it's still a thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's wrap it up.
All right. I get a fun episode next time.
Deal.
I thought this was one.
Deal.
Okay.
You'll
I was
get a
even
fun
ready.
episode.
I was giddy at the beginning.
You were excited.
I was. I'm like, ooh, we're gonna have some fun. I'm like, fuck, that's heavy.
I've been waiting to talk about this.
Yeah?
It was on my podcast list.
Oh, good. It's a good one.
Yeah. It is a good one. It's very thought provoking.
It is thought provoking.
And it's like, turns out Mr. Holland's Opus wasn't as good as we thought it was.
It was not.
Anything else?
That's it.
Next week, folks, stay tuned for a fun episode.
Maybe.
Perchance.
Perchance. Depends on what's going on that week.
It depends on what movies Craig watches that week.
Yeah. Or me.
It's true. You
Yeah.
watched some really.
Can we talk about hacks?
27
Thank you.
Dresses was on TV.
Did you watch it?
No, I didn't.
Did you?
But
you
I was
think of
gonna.
me?
I did think of you when I saw. I'm like, maybe I should
like
watch
Katherine
this.
Heigl.
And I tried watching 30 seconds of it. And I'm like, nope,
That wasn't one of her best, but I like her.
nope, I'm good.
That was not one of her best, but I like her.
Baby, she doesn't have a best.
She does.
Her best was when she stopped acting. That's when she should have
No.
won the award
No.
for.
What's the one with her and Gerard Butler?
No,
I love that
Nope.
one. I
Nope.
love it.
Katherine Heigl should not be on film and
Stop
or
it.
TV.
I love you, Izzy. Stop it.
Go check us out on Instagram. Go to our website and click on sponsors. There's a bunch of links there where you can go save some money and get some cool stuff. And any and all of that helps the podcast. And always just tell somebody about the show. That's the easiest way that you can do something. All of this stuff that I think from now until forever, the podcast will always be free. So you're welcome. Anything else, my love?
That's it.
Let's go. When in
go.
doubt, spread them out.